With the current MLB playoff format, a wildcard team needs to win 13 total games in order to win the World Series. The Rangers ended up as the number 5 seed in the playoffs, which was probably the worst outcome for any of the fringe playoff teams in the American League, and in turn required them to win those aforementioned 13 games. The number 5 seed always plays the 4 seed, and the 6 seed always plays the 3 seed in the first round of the playoffs. These rankings are determined by whether or not you won your division, and then secondly by your overall record. Because of the way things ended up on the final day of the regular season, the 5th seeded AL team clearly had the most difficult strength of schedule. As a lower seed in the playoffs, you also don't have the luxury and advantage of having home field advantage. In the Rangers' case specifically, they wouldn't be able to play a single home game unless they made it to the divisional round, and it wouldn't even be until Game 3 of the ALDS that Arlington would be able to host postseason baseball on October 10th. If the Rangers were to make it that far, it would be one of the longest road trips in the history of baseball at 16 days, with the Rangers' last home game being September 24th against the Seattle Mariners. One of the stats we'll use to set the stage more accurately during this postseason run is including the championship win probability added statistic. CWPA is naturally more volatile the further you get into the playoffs, but it's important to use this stat as a tool to understand how impactful a moment in baseball was, or is, when it comes to accomplishing the ultimate goal of any baseball team. It's a storytelling metric, and after all, this is a pretty dang good story. So without further explanation, and after a 6.5-hour flight to Tampa for the Rangers, it was time for the first game of the Rangers 2023 postseason. The story of this series boils down simply to Nathan Eovaldi and Jordan Montgomery. The two starters in both of these games led a pitching staff that had allowed just a single run in the entire series and left Rays hitters stymied with a .473 OPS over those two games. In the first inning of Game 1, Evan Carter flashed the leather for the first time to rob Isaac Paredes of a base hit with a diving catch in left field. Shortly after that, in the bottom of the second, Montgomery himself would make a diving catch on a botched bunt attempt to hold runners at first and third. A beautifully executed curve 4 pitches later would strike out Rene Pinto, and the game would remain close until the top of the 5th inning. Corey Seager would lead off with a double, and Robbie Grossman would work a full count walk to leave runners on first and second for Adolis Garcia, who would proceed to rip a line drive off of Tyler Glasnow and create a bases loaded situation with no outs. Glasnow actually managed to get out of this jam while only giving out a single unearned run on a wild pitch. He would leave that inning having thrown 88 pitches to this point, while Montgomery was only at 47. By the 6th inning, Glasnow was out at 98 pitches, and in relief was right-hander Chris Davinsky to face Corey Seager with runners on first and second. Davinsky was traded from the Angels midseason to bolster the Rays bullpen. He would end up putting up a 2.08 ERA in 8 2/3 innings for Tampa, and the Rays were looking for some of that consistency in this pivotal moment in Game 1. And unfortunately, things got very bad for them. It started with Corey Seager depositing a line drive to center field that was almost certainly going to score the speedy Evan Carter. Jose Siri in center field makes an absolutely atrocious error at this point, swiping at the ball. Siri then airmails the ball into the Rangers dugout, causing the Rangers' 4th and final run of the game to score all the way from first base. It was lights out the rest of the way as Monty would pitch 7 incredible innings, Chapman would shut down the 8th, and Leclerc came in to seal the deal in the 9th. Not a bad way to make an opening statement to start a postseason run. The first part of Game 2 was an absolutely thrilling pitcher's duel between Zach Eflin and Nathan Eovaldi. 3 innings up and down, both of these guys battled and managed to get out of some sticky situations to keep the game tied at 0. That is, until Adolis Garcia came up for his at-bat in the top of the 4th.
Adolis grounded to shortstop his first time with a runner at second, 2 outs.
There's a long fly ball to left, way back, and gone. First home run of this series for either team.
This was the first home run allowed between either of these teams until now, and it wouldn't be the only one of the inning either. Several batters later, after a run-scoring triple from Josh Young, Evan Carter would mash his first postseason home run, putting the Rangers up 4-0. This was the 6th consecutive time Carter had reached base between both games. If the regular season was any indication for how talented Carter was, he was on another planet just 2 games into the postseason. It wasn't until the 7th inning that the Rays would end up scoring their first and only run of the series. But by then, the damage had been done, and the Rangers would cruise to a 2-game sweep of the Rays with a 7-1 victory. If they handed out wildcard MVP awards, you'd be hard-pressed to not end up giving it to Evan Carter, who in his first ever postseason action had 3 hits, all for extra bases, 3 walks, and an on-base percentage near 90%. The series was simple, well executed, and while the Rays certainly did not play their best baseball, it was the Rangers, despite some heavy odds, moving on to face the Orioles. One bizarre tidbit of this series is that only about 20,000 fans showed up to each of the Rays' 2 postseason games. Tropicana Field, rest in peace, holds over 42,000 seats, meaning you couldn't even fill each of the seats in that ballpark if you combined the total fans from both games. But maybe a little less pressure for the Rangers. Oh well. 2 wins down, 11 to go, and on to Baltimore. If facing an even more competent team than the Rays wasn't difficult enough, the Rangers went into Baltimore with an exhausted pitching staff and ultimately had to roll with a bullpen game to start the ALDS. Just to hammer this point down a little harder, this is the same bullpen that almost had the all-time MLB record in blown saves. It was the same one that was known for its almost comical timing of collapsing late in games, and it was the same one that has been seemingly cursed for decades. This bullpen was ultimately getting the nod to start the first game of the ALDS. The Orioles, on the other hand, got to let loose their best pitcher of the 2023 season, Kyle Bradish. Now, Bradish is not really known by many regular baseball fans, but he would end up coming in 4th in AL Cy Young voting after posting a .283 and a .104 whip across 30 starts in the regular season. Bochy, on the other hand, announced a tandem of Andrew Heaney and Dane Dunning. Those guys were going to piggyback off of each other for Game 1, and by the early evening, the ALDS was underway. In the first 3 innings, both teams were only able to muster a single hit. Robbie Grossman roped a double for the Rangers, and Anthony Santander smashed a single for the O's. The only difference between both teams was that Bradish had already recorded 5 strikeouts, none of them requiring more than 4 pitches. Strikeout number 6 came at the dispense of Grossman in the top of the 4th, but despite this game looking more and more like another pitcher's duel, it would take 6 more batters in the same inning for Bradish to get his 7th K of the game.
Here's ALDS Garcia, who struck out his first time up. The pitch is lined over third. That's a fair ball. Whistling past Urias and down the line. Into the corner goes Hayes. It bounds away from him momentarily.
Here it is Evan Carter.
Swings on the first pitch, lines it down the right field line, and that is in there for a hit. One hop to the wall. Adolis got a late start, but he's heading home. The throw goes to second. He is safe. 1 out. Here's Jonah Heim. Heim swings and lines one toward left. It's through, a base hit past a diving Henderson. Carter around third, and he will score. And the Rangers lead it 2-0.
Another amazing play by Evan Carter. That line drive was hit right at him, and he somehow got his body under that line drive.
In a blink of an eye, it was 2-0 Texas in the top of the 4th. That lead would eventually be cut in half as a 7-pitch walk to Santander and a corresponding first-pitch double from Ryan Mountcastle at 109 miles an hour off the bat brought the game to 2-1. Dane Dunning eventually took over for Heaney, and in the top of the 5th, Brash would be taken out as well. For the final 5-ish innings of this game, Brandon Hyde and Bruce Bochy would play a 4-dimensional chess match with their bullpens in an attempt to hold each offense at bay. The single blunder from Brandon Hyde was choosing to put in newly acquired Rangers reliever Jacob Webb to face Josh Young in the top of the 6th inning. Webb's third pitch, a fastball that missed its intended spot outside, was deposited into right center field, and the Rangers were now up 3-1 with a 77% chance to win the game. For nearly an hour, it never felt like this narrow lead was even remotely safe for the Rangers. The bullpen was now being tasked to hold a much more narrow lead than what it was gifted in the previous 2 games. In the 7th inning, Josh Sborz came on to face the bottom of the O's lineup, but I think we should just let him tell you what happened here.
So warming up, I've pitched there 3 or 4 times. Fans are great. Like, it is rowdy. So like, this is a perfect combination for me to throw really freaking hard.
Yep.
Get on the mound. I'm warming up. I'm throwing, and every time I throw, the sun just hits me right in the eyes, right? I have blue eyes. If I'm looking in the sun, I can't see shit.
Gotcha.
Right? And it's kind of like I look up in the rafters, and like, you know, there's 10 minutes left of sun. I need to piece this together before, I need to kill as much time as possible before that sun, just to get that sun down. Mm-hmm. First 4 pitches, balls, not even close. Mm-hmm. I remember Jonah coming out like, you all right? I'm like, yeah, just couldn't see it very well. Next guy is Frazier, left-hander, throw a ball. Now we're 1-0. Maddox comes out like, what do you got? I'm like, just kill time. I need the sun to go down. Another like 30 seconds, we're good, right? And then throw another ball. It was more in the vicinity of the strike zone. Come back, 3-2, he flies out. So now I can see visually.
Yep.
Which is really helpful when you're trying to throw a ball in a certain location.
For sure.
You know, I know I'm throwing hard. I know my curveball is probably the best it ever was at that point.
Disgusting.
I don't remember who was up next. It was another lefty center fielder.
Is that Mullins?
Cedric, yeah.
Yep.
It was a good luck at bat for him. You know, I threw one of the best curveballs. I think it was 88 back leg.
Yeah.
Good luck, you know. Then O'Hearn comes up. Pretty good matchup for me. Like top zone, curveballs kind of plays into my hands. It's 2-2, and I've thrown him like 5 straight curveballs, and he's just fouling it off, working it. And Jonah just gives me heater away. And usually it's pretty clear, like up and away, down and away. Just throw it as hard as I possibly can, down and away, which I would never throw to that guy because he can hit it a mile. And looking 99.2.
It was disgusting.
And you look at the sequence of beforehand, like I said, 5 curveballs kind of in that location. Strike to ball. Yeah. And then that one was right there, just painted.
If you thought Sborz' outing was nerve-wracking, Chapman's probably would give you a mild heart attack. After walking Austin Hayes on 4 pitches, throwing a wild pitch, advancing Hayes to second, and then walking Adley Rutschman, Anthony Santander was up to bat with no outs and 2 runners on. In a split second, a 99-mile-an-hour fastball from Chapman was hit at 105 off the bat, but was picked incredibly by Young, who fed to Simeon, and then threw to Lowe to record an improbable and game-saving double play. Chapman proceeded to get Ryan Mountcastle into a 2-2 count before unleashing a 101.4-mile-an-hour sinker at the top of the zone for a classic Chapman stare-down/strikeout. With the Rangers once again failing to record another hit, the bottom of the 9th was due up, and so was Jose Leclerc. Funny enough, Jose Leclerc in 2023 was the most tenured player on the Texas Rangers. He's the only guy on the team that was on the pennant-winning 2016 team. He went through the Rangers rebuild, played through COVID, and yet was still on this team through all of that. History would say that this team, who once again blew 33 games over the course of the regular season, was bound to finally crack under the pressure of this moment. Sborz barely survived. Chapman was honestly bailed out by excellent defense, and Leclerc himself had 5 blown saves already racked up this year. But with no outs, the Orioles tried to sneak Gunnar Henderson to second to better their chance at sealing a Game 1 victory over the Rangers. Unfortunately for them, Jonah Heim unleashed the throw of his life and was absolutely on the money to throw at Henderson at second and eliminate the Orioles' tying run being on base. This throw by itself brought the Rangers' chances from winning from 67% to 89%, and it was a brutal blow for the home favorites. A strikeout of Aaron Hicks and a groundout from Adam Frazier left the Rangers with a highly improbable Game 1 victory, and a fan base who will probably have cardiac issues for the rest of their lives. I wanted to dive into this game more than the other 2 in the ALDS because, in my eyes, this is the moment when people really started to understand that the Rangers may have just put everything together at the perfect time. It didn't matter what the circumstances were, what the box score was, or even how guys performed individually during the regular season. Winning this game was unbelievably massive for the Rangers, and the momentum very clearly was carried into Game 2 and throughout the rest of the postseason. Wouldn't you know that the team who made scoring 10 or more runs a regular occurrence in 2023 did exactly that and made it through a kinda sloppy 11-8 win to take a 2-0 series lead back to Arlington. The biggest storyline coming into this game was that Mitch Garver was making his way back into the Rangers lineup after being out with a nagging injury over the previous week. You would have never guessed that he was dealing with something though if you weren't really paying attention, because during the game he launched a 420-foot grand slam and a sick bat drop against Flaherty in the 5th inning. The Rangers offense had managed to chase Grayson Rodriguez out of the game after he dished out 4 walks and 5 earned runs while only being able to record 5 total outs. The Orioles would eventually dish out 11 total walks in this game to the Rangers. 5 of those would find their way into Corey Seager's box score, which brought his postseason on-base percentage to this point at an absolutely wild .667. And yet somehow Evan Carter still had a higher on-base percentage in the postseason than Corey Seager. 706, that's kind of crazy. Of all the things that happened in this game, the best part for me personally was the national introduction of Cody Bradford, who threw 51 pitches in 3 2/3 innings, walked nobody, and only gave up 3 hits. All things considered in postseason baseball nowadays, that is an unbelievable accomplishment for a rookie pitcher. As Josh Sborz came in to help record the final out of the 8th inning, the Rangers were on their way to the final inning with a massive 6-run cushion, with Brock Burke ending up being the man tasked to uphold that lead in the 9th for the Rangers. Unfortunately, Burke had only gotten Santander to line out. He walked Henderson and gave up a single to Austin Hayes, and Bruce Bochy had apparently seen enough to once again call on Jose Leclerc to finish the game. If it wasn't obvious by now, there was certainly certainly a circle of trust with the Rangers bullpen, playing in their 4th game of the postseason to this point. For what it's worth, Leclerc was absolutely electric in October, and he was averaging about 2 to 3 miles an hour faster on nearly all of his pitches during the postseason. Ultimately, Aaron Hicks's 3-run home run was still not enough for the Orioles to mount any legitimate comeback, and Leclerc did shut the door on the potential for the Orioles to win this game. The last time the Rangers had a 2-0 lead in the postseason was in 2015 when the Rangers took 2 from Toronto on the road and then came home to try to finish the job. 8 years later, the Rangers were on their way home after 3 weeks on the road looking to win their first home playoff game since 2011.